So here's what we came up with on these tiers, and we're going to show you the teams at the very bottom first. When you look at the truly worst teams in football, it's amazing. If you look at these bottom three rows, it's all NFC teams essentially, plus the Jets and the Texans. The Jets and the Texans, and then a bunch of NFC teams on the bottom three rows. You then look at the top row of teams that should not be named. You know, you got Mac Jones and Trevor Lawrence staring at each other neck to neck, and Mac's like, oh boy, it's not going to turn out well for me. Now to the teams that actually matter.
Wow.
AFC Duck Duck Goose, or NFC Duck Duck Goose, pardon me. Why do I call it that? Well, because listen, one of these teams likely makes the playoffs, but Duck Duck Goose is like a nice fun game. There's no real losers. There's a winner, but it's nice soft. Compare that to the AFC teams. These teams are fighting for the AFC final playoff spot. AFC Squid Game. That is not a nice, fun game. It's literally life or death. And that's how tough the AFC is going to be this year. When the Broncos, who added Mr. Limited, the Browns, who added Deshaun Watson, the Raiders, who added Devontae Adams, and the Titans, who didn't add much, but they were the number one seed, I believe they are all fighting for the seventh and final playoff spot. Now reveal the next group. This next group of teams, okay, we'll deal with the Bengals in a moment. Frisky or fraudulent? Because for the Cowboys, Cardinals, Colts, and Packers, there will be points in the year, I believe, where each of these teams will have 4-game winning streaks. Where each of these teams will be frisky. Oh, nobody wants to play them. But in the back of your head, you're going to say, ooh, Mike McCarthy. Ooh, Aaron Rodgers. I remember that playoff game. Ooh, is Kyler going to stay healthy? Ooh, the Colts, their history basically over the last decade. Can you trust them? And then, Nick, why are the Bengals there? Listen, I've given you 2 months, Cincinnati. I can now say what everyone's thinking. That was the most fraudulent Super Bowl appearance any of us have witnessed since Jake Delhomme took the Panthers there 20 years ago. You're not going to sniff I like what you did with the offensive line. It's not going to matter. People are going to look back on history and say, the Bengals made that Super Bowl? Come on. So you're going to be a nice team. You're going to be a good team. You're going to probably sneak into the playoffs, but that's about it. Okay, A+ game. 2 of these teams, I think, on any given Sunday, can look like the best team in football, the Chargers and the Ravens. The Ravens were 8-3 last year before injuries truly derailed them. And you guys know how much I love the Chargers quarterback and their coach, Broussard. The Bucs, on the other hand, because Brady is allegedly back, will have times they look like the best team in the NFC, but we actually saw them play the entirety of last year and the playoffs. I see no reason to believe they'll be better, and they weren't good enough last season. So that would then bring us to the truly terrifying tier, and I don't believe any of these teams, or any of the teams above, are actually afraid of any of the 28 other teams in football. They're not terrified of any of them, so throw it out. So the best 4 teams in football are just looking around at each other. First, we have the NFC Championship game rematch. I have no reason to believe that we won't get this NFC Championship game once again this year. It feels like they were the 2 best teams in the NFC last year. It feels like, if anything, the NFC had a talent drain rather than major talent additions. I understand teams are doing things around the margins, but I think the Rams and the Niners are still going to face each other again for a chance to lose to one of these 2 teams in the Super Bowl. Number 1 contender, Buffalo, and of course the favorites, Kansas City. They were the best 2 teams, the scariest 2 teams in the AFC last year. They played the game of the season in the divisional round at Arrowhead. And again, Buffalo's had the better offseason than Kansas City. There is no denying that. However, until Buffalo beats the Chiefs in a big spot, I'm going to continue to install the Chiefs as the favorites. And by the way, Vegas is, of course, going to agree with me. Greg Jennings, your thoughts as committee member emeritus. I actually greatly care about your opinion on this, unlike Broussard, who will never get an invite. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it comes to no surprise, I believe, to any of us that your favorites are the Kansas City Chiefs. We all knew that was coming. Like I said, no surprise. You know what? I'm going to let you have it. I don't agree with that because I believe there are teams in that division that have gotten a lot better. One being on your NFC CG rematch, which is the Chargers, and also the Broncos. You have kind of pretty Squid Game. That is kind of disrespectful, but I'll let that be. For me, my team that I feel like you're completely missing out on is the NFC Duck Duck Goose tier, and that is the Minnesota Vikings. Look, This team every year they're like a player away. Last year they were a coach away. They have a new coach, Kevin O'Connell. Like, he's going to come in with this great scheme. I know he is. You have Kirk Cousins, who's been getting it done. Regardless of what we feel about Kirk, he is a really good quarterback for this team, and he's proven that. You know, you have weapons offensively, running game, Dalvin Cook, you obviously Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. But defensively, you're shoring up that side of the ball. That is where they struggled. That has been their calling card. And they're starting to shore up that side of the ball. Darius Smith, acquiring him this offseason. Yeah. Huge. Daniil Hunter. They didn't have him all last season. The player that they had been benching or pretty much revolving their entire defense around the year before, and he got injured. So he should be healthy. This team should be on that tier of frisky or fraudulent, because this is a team that you never really want to play. But then they also have moments like you mentioned with the other teams where it's like, who are the Minnesota Vikings? So I think this is a team that can be pretty frisky.
Those moments that Greg's talking about, if you can't put your finger on them, it's the 45-year history of the franchise. Those are the moments where you're like, who are the Minnesota Vikings? Are they the team that has been to a bunch of Super Bowls and lost them all? Are they the team that, you know what I mean, that gets to the NFC Championship game and can't close the deal? Like, who are, that's what they mean. And when Greg says, Brew, they're a player away, the player he means is Kirk Cousins. They are a player away. Unfortunately, that player's already there, and that's the problem. So, so I color me a Vikings pessimist that I don't think all of a sudden Kirk is going to break through. The only thing he's going to break through is that plexiglass he surrounded himself with so he wouldn't miss games due to COVID protocols. He might break through that, but I don't think he's breaking through any glass ceilings. So Greg is a committee member emeritus. However, I'm going to go ahead and say I've given the Vikings their due respect. Broussard.
Well, Nick, your committee member emeritus clearly is agreeing with me, not only about Jimmy G, but about the Denver Broncos. And that's where I want to focus this on. Look, I get it. You don't think Russell Wilson would be a hoot to hang out with. Okay. You don't like that Russell Wilson talks out loud in imaginary huddles during pregame warmups. Okay. But you are letting that cloud your judgment to your detriment, my friend. You're gonna regret this. And I don't know if this is coming from a fear of Denver really battling Kansas City, maybe even beating them for the division title, but it's gotta stop. Because there is no reason whatsoever on paper not to like the Denver Broncos. And for you to have them on the 7th tier is a straight up insult. The defense is good and got better this offseason with some of the acquisitions. The offense obviously added one of the best quarterbacks in the game, who I don't know why in the world you think he's fallen off. Because he missed some games last year, he came back early, toughed it out, and struggled initially. But over the last 6 games when he got healthy, they beat Arizona, that was playing for something. They beat San Francisco, that was playing for something. And he threw 13 touchdowns and 3 interceptions in his last 6 games, finished with a passer rating in the top 4 of the league. Like, they're going to be nice, and they're coming for your Chiefs, Nick. So that is my main problem with the tiers this week. They got to be way up there.
A few quick things about Denver. What people don't get to do, and Brew is not the only person doing this, but I've been meaning to make this point, is talk about how the offense is going to upgrade with Nathaniel Hackett there, but not allow for the fact that the defense is going to take a massive step back with Vic Fangio gone. Vic Fangio might not have been a great head coach, but he was excellent on that side of the ball.
Very true.
He's now gone. We don't know how good Nathaniel Hackett's going to be, so that's just an unknown. I'm not saying he's going to be bad or great, but any rookie head coach and a young rookie head coach at that, there's a huge question mark. But at the real core of the argument, Broussard is right. I do not think, I'm just looking at the quarterbacks, because Denver was not very good last year. Their biggest additions, of course, the quarterbacks. Looking at the tiers, Mahomes, Allen, Stafford, Herbert, Brady, Lamar, Burrow, Dak, Rodgers, and maybe Kyler. Maybe Kyler. That's 10 quarterbacks, I think, that are better than Russ. Just on the tiers above him. So, yeah, I think they got an upgrade because Drew Lock is one of the worst quarterbacks in football. So they're a legitimate team now. But I don't think Russ has been a top 5 quarterback in anywhere other than his imagination over the last few years. I just don't.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.